Yeah. Here we are. We're live. Hello and
back.
welcome. Yeah, we're back for the first time since who knows when. Actually, I think we last recorded an episode or went live. The Yankees were still playing. I don't think they were eliminated from the postseason yet, and we won't even talk about that. I don't think we should because it was pretty painful to watch.
I forgot about that whole. I forgot we even recorded then. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we did like 2 episodes during that season. It was unfortunate. I wish we did a little bit more, but it happens. But for those of you who are unfamiliar, we are Yankee Chatter, part of the Bigger and Bradder Sports Network. My name is Greg Andriano. You can find me at GregAndriano05 on the Twitterverse. And these are my buddies up north, Brad and Tino.
Yep. I'm Brad at Chatter1. Try to point to my name here. Yep. Up north, trying to stay warm inside.
No snow yet.
Training so that the just seeing the green grass on TV makes you feel a little bit warmer. So can't wait for those days.
I know, especially because it's supposed to snow all week.
Oh, see, I don't envy you guys at all.
Yeah.
I'm looking at. Well, it's probably going to rain, but I'm looking at green grass. So,
looking at a whole bunch of white up here.
Yeah. It ain't going away anytime soon.
It's exciting. We're having this episode because this week pitchers and catchers start to report to spring training for all Major League Baseball teams. And so in this episode, we're going to start out by talking about, kind of round out about how Major League Baseball as a whole is jumping into the season, where some big free agent signings ended up, and just an overall discussion about where Major League Baseball is headed with the rules that they've decided on for this season and so forth. Then we'll jump into some Yankees conversation and go from there. So I think we should all start off by talking about the big free agent signing of this offseason. The number one free agent coming into the offseason was Cy Young winner Trevor Bauer. And he toyed with everybody's emotions this whole entire offseason. And then he finally released a YouTube video which had similar feelings of LeBron's The Decision, or at least I think he was trying to do that. And he announced his destination. He ended up signing with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Let's talk about that for a little bit. And while you guys talk about that, I'm going to share the link so people can join the stream. So.
Oh, cool. All right. Yeah, so I was kind of predicting LA all along, but I was thinking the Angels. I didn't think the Dodgers would even really feel the need to go spend all that money on Bauer. But in the end, it really just came down to the Dodgers and Mets. I mean, I think Bauer toyed with everyone's emotions so much that it really turned people off, actually. And he did make it about himself a lot, but he has the right to do that. He's a different kind of guy. I think he's kind of feeling a little too big in the britches, if you will, over having one good season. I guess are we doing his highlights right now, or?
No, I'm sorry. I'm sharing the link, and it's got a mind of its own. Keep going. Sorry,
I don't know. It sounded like it made us more official, anyway. But so they went. I didn't realize that the Angels. Well, as of right now, they still have Mickey Callaway on their team, and he doesn't get along with Callaway as a pitching coach. So that wasn't going to work, and they came down to Mets and Dodgers. I picked the Dodgers too. He's Bauer's from LA. They have a championship team. It's nice and warm all year. I mean, it's a no-brainer for me. So we'll see how he does out there. I mean, I'm sure he's going to do just fine with that lineup behind him. But they have a championship team. It's nice and warm all year. I mean, it's a no-brainer. Actually, it's kind of nice to see the team implode a little bit with him in there. I love to see the locker room. What happens in there with Bauer's attitude. But
took him a long time to make the decision too. I mean, it seemed like everyone knew where he was going to go. It was just like he was kind of making it about himself, like you were saying. Isn't he part of Barstool?
No.
I thought he does like a podcast for them.
He does, but it's his own thing.
It's his own thing. Okay.
He has his own YouTube channel. Yeah, and he's around everywhere. Even on MLB Network, he has his hour called Bauer Hour, and
yeah,
he just likes to be out there. on the
I didn't
social.
realize he was the prized possession of this, because I didn't hear much about him until he finally started to figure out what teams he was going to go to. I don't know why the Mets were could the Mets afford him? I mean, obviously they could, but could they really afford him or no?
Oh yeah, I think they
Oh, yeah,
offer
absolutely.
either just as much or more.
Yeah. I don't know. Just him going to the Mets probably wasn't I don't think anyone really thought he was going to go there.
Well, the whole entire Mets fan base thought he was going there.
Yeah, well, yeah. No, I mean, yeah.
And even Bob Nightingale, I
Yeah,
think, like right before
was a
he
little too
announced
fast there,
he was
Bobby.
signing. Go ahead.
I don't know if I want him.
I said, Bobby boy, he released the news a little too fast there, and
Yeah.
got backfired on him.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I just feel like a guy like that coming onto a championship team just doesn't. I don't know. Obviously the Dodgers are loaded, but adding him makes them better on paper. But he could be a distraction. So
He's not really the Dodger kind of guy right now, which is why
that's
I'm
what
really
I'm saying.
interested. The Dodgers are kind of low talking, like soft spoken, just good baseball team, and now you're gonna start bringing in guys with reputations like Bauer, and I don't know, it might disrupt the chemistry a little bit, but then again, it might not. Baseball is not one of those teams that you really necessarily need chemistry because it's more of an individual sport than the others.
Yeah.
Bauer's been criticized in the past for being a really bad teammate, and he's kind of tried to spin that around. Recently, Cincinnati players said he's a really good teammate. So,
how many teams has he been on?
What's that?
How many teams has he been on? 3? Wow.
3. He was drafted by the Diamondbacks.
Okay.
And the Diamondbacks traded him to Cleveland, and then Cleveland traded him to Cincinnati.
Because I remember Cleveland.
Dodgers, so now 4.
Yeah, no, it's just I wonder how he's gonna, because obviously him and Kershaw. I mean, Kershaw's still really good, and I wonder how that's gonna work out. Like, who's gonna be? Obviously, Kershaw will probably be the number 1, or no?
Well, they have a lot of number ones. They have Walker
Yeah.
Buehler on the team too, who's probably one of the best pitchers in the entire league. So,
Yeah.
And now they have David Price coming back. I don't know what he has left in him, but he used to be a number 1 kind of guy.
That's quite the rotation.
Justin May is a young guy, but he's supposed to be like an ace. So I mean, they can go on and on and on.
Yeah,
they are an incredibly, annoyingly deep team.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. So I got the links shared. Hopefully,
imagine if Don Madigan was still coaching that team.
I think most people thought too when they traded for Betts and then gave him that huge extension. I don't think many people thought they were going to spend on Bauer too, because this puts them way over the luxury tax. I think they're at $250 or $260 now, so they're going to get penalized.
They just re-signed Justin Turner.
Him too, yeah.
To a 2-year, $34 million deal. So that's another $17 million on the books for this year.
Wow.
So not only are they get taxed really heavily, but now their first round draft pick next year is going to automatically get dropped 10 spots. Not that they really care. They're just somehow Dodgers is loaded with all this talent.
Yeah.
Their scouting department must be amazing, but
It has to.
They're just giving away money to luxury tax at this point.
Yeah. Must be nice.
But they are willing to do what it takes to win. They feel like they have a good team, a good base to build off of, to go from, since they just won the World Series last year. Why not make a run and put together a dynasty? They'll deal with the costs later.
They stay somewhat healthy. It should be very easy for them to go back at least to the World Series.
Do you think that they need to win the World Series again to kind of validate last year, since last year was just that really weird 60-game schedule?
I don't think so.
You think that? Because I remember you were one of the first ones, Greg, to say that's not really a World Series to you. They don't play the full schedule, so.
Yeah, and I think that was before they came out with the expanded playoffs, and the playoffs itself was a task just to get through. So the teams that made the playoffs were really good, and it was exciting to watch, and it was nice to see for 1 year. But I think the conditions in which they played in and the length of the playoffs, I think it's a legitimate World Series championship.
I mean, they were
going to
no doubt
go there anyway. So.
You got to give them that.
Mm-hmm.
That and them, obviously that's a weird situation to go through. If you can keep your team together through all of that, you deserve a little bit of recommendation, a little bit of praise for that. Being able to keep your team together through everything, because the same thing with with hockey with the Tampa Bay Lightning. It's like they're not going to take that Stanley Cup away from them. They made it through everything and played. Because at the end of the season, they didn't play at their home arena. They didn't play at their home field.
Who's
No,
that?
they played in Texas.
Played in random. Yeah, so it's just. I know in the beginning of everything, people were saying that it should be an asterisk and all that, but if you really look at it, to put a championship team together in the elements that there was, it was actually a little bit extra. Because it's kind of like you guys actually did something a little bit better than what most teams can do. To get the team together, not being at home, away from their families. It seems like you deserve a little bit more praise for that.
And I mean, look at they were the favorites to come in. It was I believe that they were projected to go into the World Series against the Yankees. And look at what happened to the Yankees. The Yankees were unable to stay healthy all year, and they had a rough stretch kind of in the middle of the season, and it hurt them. And they didn't win the division. They didn't beat the Rays, unfortunately, and they didn't live up to their expectations. The Dodgers, they did. They did exactly what they were supposed to. So,
how about the year though? For just kind of off topic here, for the year for LA and Tampa Bay. I mean, Tampa Bay between the Lightning and the Rays and the Buccaneers now, and then in LA you had the Dodgers and the Lakers winning. It's like a tale of the two coasts in 2020.
Yep,
pretty much, yeah. Well, that's good for Tampa Bay because they are a small market city, so it's nice to see some of their teams have success. Could care less about the Rays, but
they're doing some championship parades.
Yeah, still don't like them very much, but they're doing something right. They're able to win without spending a lot of money, which is a lot more than you can say for some of these other small market teams that are just thrown in the towel before the season even starts, like the Pirates and the Royals and the Tigers. Some of these teams, they're rebuilding and they're not trying to put a good product out on the field, and it's upsetting.
I mean, I think we need to have an episode in its own just about organizations and how they approach the seasons every year, because it's borderline embarrassing what some cities do, and then you got the cities like that we've been talking right now that are actually trying, and it's just unfortunate. But I guess that's another episode. So the second biggest free agent everyone was talking about was probably Real Muto.
Real Muto was at the top, yes, yep, and a lot of people thought that. Well, the Mets. So before we get into Real Muto, let's talk a little bit about the Mets. The Mets have a new owner this year, and he's a multi-billionaire, Steve Cohen. And the expectation was for him to come in and spend tons and tons of money to make the Mets be better than the Yankees. That's seems like the Mets' goal every year is to have bragging rights over the Yankees.
Well, he hear
it from Mets fans all the time.
Which is cool.
Which is great, which is fantastic for the organization. So a lot of the expectations were that from Mets fans that I was seeing on Twitter is that the Mets were going to come in and they were going to spend all this money and take all the top free agents and be the toast of the town and take the championship away from LA and get Bauer and Real Muto, and I can't remember off the top of my head who the other big free agent was. Springer. Yeah, all these guys were linked to the Mets, and then they ultimately didn't sign any of them. Real Muto went back to Philly, which
they didn't even try for Greenwood, but they kind of focused in on James McCann instead right away. Who I think is just an average catcher.
Go ahead.
I think McCann's an average catcher. I wouldn't even call that a big splash of a signing, but he got so much money because of how bad that position is really in the major leagues right now.
Yeah. Catcher is very thin. He's an average, slightly above average catcher. He's not the same caliber as Real Muto, for sure, but it'll be a nice little signing. But the other big splash the Mets made was on the trade market when they traded for Francisco Lindor and Carlos Carrasco. A A lot of people thought that the Yankees were going to try and make a move for Lindor. I was personally hoping that they would. Nothing against Glaber, but he just makes the Yankees a better team regardless of where he plays. But that didn't happen. So he ended up with the Mets. The Mets traded away Ahmed Rosario and a couple other people. But that trade instantly made the Mets better.
Yeah, and somehow they didn't even have to trade. I think any of their top 10 prospects didn't even get moved in the deal.
Yeah,
no,
which is a big deal.
Which was insane that Cleveland let a guy like Lindor go for that. I wouldn't say small price, but for that price. But I personally was hoping. Everyone knew something that was saying Yankees were gonna grab Lindor, and a lot of the big shots on MLB radio thought Lindor was ultimately going to be a Yankee, but as for right now, it didn't happen. I would have personally, like you said, nothing against Glaber, but I mean, Lindor he's a proven. Is he a switch hitter, right?
He is a switch hitter.
Yeah, so a proven switch hitting shortstop that's great defense. Those don't come around too much, so it's upsetting, but. That was the Mets' big thing. They got Lindor, and they seem pretty happy. That's a lot of teams' whole winner right there is getting a guy like Lindor. So they didn't get the guys they wanted, but I think they're happy with the team they're going to put out there next year.
Do you think that?
And then on top of that, they got Carlos Carrasco, who's a pretty good pitcher.
Which nobody really talks about either. Yeah.
Do you think that
was a steal?
Also, too, with the Bauer situation and maybe something else, because didn't the Mets GM get fired?
Yeah, after about a week.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. He got fired for doing Met stuff, I guess, for the sexual harassment or whatever. But, I mean, right there, that could be something, too, where it's like, bringing in somebody.
Steve Cohen got kind of thrown into the limelight, too, when the whole thing happened on Wall Street there with
Robin Hood. Yeah.
So everyone's saying Steve Cohen just belongs in jail now, and that didn't really that went away pretty quickly. But
yeah,
he definitely had a very interesting few months as a Mets owner.
And the guy they hired, I mean, the GM they had, he was young too. He was really young, and the stuff that he was doing, I mean. It just shows if you ever want to be famous or you want to be in any of those kind of, where you're in the spotlight, you can't do shit in your life bad because they'll find it. They'll find it. That's why I will never be famous. I would lose my job in a day. In a day.
That's the reason why, right there.
That's the big reason why I'll never,
He's got to keep a low profile or he's going to be in jail for getting famous.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I think he texted he texted that female reporter, I think they said 56 times, something like that, without a response.
The stuff he was saying to her,
insane.
Weird stuff. Like, it was like, dude, like, that's not how you pick up a girl. But
whatever. I'll never understand any of that. I mean, I understand it. It's dumb, but I can't imagine being think of that, especially when you're in a position of power and people know who you are. I mean, you shouldn't be doing that in general, but come on, it's like 10 times you're under a magnifying glass, and I could never.
Dude, that's the thing is the power gets to some of these people's heads, But I just think that it's funny that the Mets, they get a new owner, everyone's feeling good, and then the GM gets fired after like a week. And
that's such a Mets thing to happen.
The Mets being the Mets.
Mets being the Mets.
They're good at that. They're good at being the Mets.
Yeah.
Mets gonna Mets. But so anyways, aside from all the controversy with the Mets, they definitely have made the NL East a stronger division. Now the Nationals and the Braves are both really good. The Nats made some moves. They signed Kyle Schwarber and John Lester, and I can't remember a couple other pickups they had. So they've had a
good winner too.
Yep. And the Marlins are up and coming. I think the most difficult division to decide a winner will be the Mets. I mean, the NL East.
Yeah, last year doing it.
Every team is good.
Although last year,
go ahead.
Last year, with some of Washington's injuries, they got off to that bad start and could never really finish. And then Philly had a terrible bullpen last year too, and that really showed up big time. So that was, and then the Mets were the Mets, so that really helped clear up that division. I don't think this year is going to be that easy because Philadelphia added bullpen help, Mets got a lot better, and the Nationals are going to get Strasburg back, and they signed some good players. So it's kind of stinks as a Yankee fan because we play the NL East again this year, and there's no easy games in there at all.
No, none. I mean, the only thing you're going to get a breather from is maybe the Marlins if they regress, but I hope for the Marlins' sake they don't.
I really hope not either.
The division that's going to be a disaster this year is going to be the NL Central.
I was just going to say the Central, yeah.
And they always seem to be the weakest division every year, regardless of how good they have. They may have one good team in there, but I don't know. It's just that's where all the weakest teams are. That's where you got the Pirates in there. You got the Reds who just sold or are selling off, and now I think the Cubs are trying to get rid of a bunch of people. So I mean, they traded away Darvish, and then the team that's only team that's making moves out of there is the Cardinals, which they made a huge splash this year, picking up Nolan Arenado from the Colorado Rockies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a big
the
move.
division that has the most teams that don't spend money, and that's what happens. That's why the division's terrible every year. Even before Arenado happened, the Cardinals weren't doing anything either. So It's just a race. It's basically like it felt to me like almost like they all sat around a poker table one day and they're like, you know what? We don't really feel like doing anything this winter. We know you guys don't either. So let's all just sit around, do nothing, and then within the last couple of weeks, we'll all just take turns picking up the scraps on the free agency market, and that's what they did.
Mm-hmm. They got to fill out their roster somehow, right?
Yeah, it's basically just been this last week or two that teams in that division started signing players, and then the Cardinals made that big trade. So, that's going to be the forgotten division, especially with how good the NL West is now. So, it's disappointing. I would say it's disappointing that a team like the Reds can finally get to a position where they're competing and they're in the playoffs, and now they just sell the whole team off again after one season. That was really disappointing.
It was because you want to look back and hope that you're going to have another resurgence and have the second coming of the Big Red Machine, and that they had it. They had all the ingredients, and they stumbled in the playoffs, and then that was it.
Yeah,
they gave up.
They had the pitching. All they had to do was add some bats because they couldn't score a run in the playoffs. That's why they lost. But instead of adding, they just subtracted big time. So it's just amazing to me. I actually really feel bad for the fans.
Mm-hmm.
Cincinnati.
The only other team that probably will give the Cardinals a run for their money will probably be the Brewers. I mean, they picked up Long. They had some young players. They have Yelich, probably going to have a bounce back season this year. So they're there. I think the Cardinals will take the division probably, but the Brewers are probably the competition for second place will be between the Brewers and the Cubs.
I was going to say the Cubs are going to be second tier kind of team this year. Nothing too good, nothing too bad.
Well, who did the Cubs just sign? It was somebody pretty decent, right?
Jock Peterson.
Peterson, okay, I thought it was somebody else too, but either way,
they picked up someone else, but
the Cubs. It depends on how long they get, because they're gonna trade Chris Bryant eventually, but is it at the trade deadline or is it before a season? We don't know. So the Cubs, to me, it depends on how long they keep their players for.
Yeah,
I don't know who they're pitching for them this year.
Well, they got rid of Hendricks, who's been the talk of trade.
Because Darvish is gone, Lester's gone.
Is gone to San Diego.
Jose Quintana's gone.
Yep.
They got rid of Lester, right? Lester went to
Lester's on the Nationals now.
now.
They really don't have a rotation unless they, make some moves.
Right. So I don't know who's pitching. So, like you said, Greg, you got to go Cardinals Brewers right now, and the Brewers haven't done much of anything either.
No, the Brewers picked up Colton Wong.
Yep.
And they have Yelich. Like I said, I think he's going to have a nice bounce back season this year.
They lost Braun.
Apparently, they made a bunch of offers for Justin Turner. What's that?
Didn't Ryan Braun retire?
Did he?
I don't think he's playing this year.
I forgot he was even on the team. I remember how good he was for a while, and then all of a sudden he kind of fell off.
Who's that, Tino?
Braun there, you're saying. I remember how good
Ryan
Braun? And then disappeared.
Well, he was really good. Then he got in trouble for steroids.
Yeah.
And then he fell off. And then he's had it quietly the last few years been pretty good. But no one really takes him seriously anymore.
Now you're saying he's done. You don't think he's coming back this year?
Well, he's a free agent. He declined his 21 option. He's been a Brewer his whole career.
Yeah.
Just reading on this now. He says he's not interested in playing.
Yeah, he said he's not playing. He's not playing this year. Yeah.
But
so that's a big loss for the lineup that they didn't really.
That is a big loss for them.
Recoup.
He won. Did he win MVP?
He did.
What's that?
I think that was while he was taking steroids.
Yeah, but he did win. I was about to say, I think he did win an MVP at one point. Yeah.
Yep.
Like me and Brad were talking about a couple weeks ago, it's like they almost need to make a separate wing and talk about all these guys that were great, but it was chemically enhanced,
Yeah.
Because they're guys that are generational that people need to know about them going forward. They need to be in some part of the history of the MLB, and it should be, but that's a whole nother conversation that can go on for hours.
He won the MVP in 2011. He finished second in 2012 and Rookie of the Year in 2007. But then, after that,
nothing.
I think 2013 he had a decent. Well, he got hurt. It looks like. I think after that is when the steroid allegations came out, and he just was never the same. So.
Well, yeah, because the big thing that's hit with him is he adamantly denied it, and then got a guy fired because they did find out that the guy who took his sample didn't seal it properly.
Yep.
So the positive test got thrown out, and that guy lost his job. I think it's documented. He lost a big part of his life because people got hate mail sent to him and everything. And then Ryan Braun tested positive again. So it was still positive in the first hand, but it got thrown out because they found some little technicality. So that's why I hate Braun, because he just didn't care about throwing people under the bus, and he was lying the whole time.
Yeah.
So,
I'd forget about
numbers. His numbers were silly. The first half of his career, ridiculous. I mean, he had 6 straight years of over 100 RBIs.
That's ridiculous.
Hitting over 300 every year. That's insane.
Yep.
And and then after that, it was never the same. So, but that's just the problem with steroids in Major League Baseball, is that there is a difference between when players are taking them and when they're not, and you can visibly see the difference in the numbers. And then he couldn't stay healthy after that. So
that too. Well, that's what steroids do. They break you down.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, let's get past the steroid talk. Let's head over to the West and talk about what these Padres are doing, huh?
Man, you think the Dodgers are going to be good? So are the Padres. They were making moves all offseason, and impressive moves too. I mean, they traded for Blake Snell from Tampa. They got Yu Darvish from the Cubs. Who else did they get? They just signed Mark Melancon.
Yep.
They already have Machado.
They already have Machado.
Went there. I'm like, why would you go to San Diego? Nothing's ever going to happen for you out there.
I was just going to say the same thing. That's why he went.
Yeah. What was the point? But I guess when they signed him, they took that signing seriously, and they're building around him. Tatis is now one of the top players of baseball. Clearly one of the faces of the game. He's going to be on the cover of this year's MLB The Show. So, he's popular. And then they got Joe Musgrove from the Pirates.
Musgrove they took, yep. So they basically got a whole new rotation.
Signed yet, but he could come back. Kirby Yates, I think, left. Right, Kirby Yates went to the Blue Jays.
Yes. Yep, but like
I
you said,
heard that the with Chris Bryant, like San Diego was one of the teams that was linked to him for the trading. Like, cause that'd be if they ended up acquiring Chris Bryant, that'd be pretty. That make them even better.
They had Chris Bryant.
I'm saying that when they were talking about how the Cubs were going to trade him, a lot of people were saying that San Diego was like one of the front runners to get him.
When was that?
Oh, it was probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And they were like, the Cubs were going to get rid of Chris Bryant at some point. I was listening to the radio going somewhere, and they were saying the Padres were the favorites to get him and all that stuff. But they make shit up.
Yeah,
it's probably just to make him.
I keep seeing that he's linked to the Mets. Chris Bryant, Cubs and Mets. Have you been seeing that, Brad?
The Mets big time with Bryant, yeah, especially now that they didn't get out of the free agents that they wanted. Which would be a pretty crazy left side of the infield, but I mean Bryant hasn't been that great the last couple of years either.
Yeah.
No, he's good, solid defensively. He's just lost it a little bit with the bat, but I think he's been hurt as well. So it's taking him a little time to get past these injuries, and he'll probably have a nice bounce back season, or at least a solid season this year, I think.
If he has a good first half.
The Padres also got Zach Davies in that Yu Darvish trade.
Oh,
so that's a good one. They signed Yerkes and Profar. They're just loaded. And they already had Chris Paddock, who was supposed to be like their future ace, so he's going to be like fifth in that rotation now.
Yeah, they're pretty stacked. Between that and their lineup, they're going to give the Dodgers a nice run for their money. Definitely,
which is good.
Definitely.
The Dodgers won the division, 7 years in a row now?
I think so.
That's going to turn into quite the.
Out of the West was probably the Giants when they were good.
It's going to turn into quite the rivalry that it already is. It probably already is a big rivalry, but since both teams are getting pretty good.
So, the Padres, big time. And then you look at the AL. So I feel like we've been talking mostly about the NL teams.
We have been, but we can talk about the AL.
AL, I mean, the Blue Jays are pretty much in on every free agent, it seemed like. But the problem with them was no one knows where you're going to be playing. I mean, as right now, you're going to be splitting your games between, Florida and Buffalo, and no one wants to do that.
No.
So I think that's why they lost out on some of the free agents. George Springer signed there, but I think he thought that Brantley was going to come with them, and Brantley ended up going back to Houston. So, I mean, I took a lot of pleasure in seeing the Blue Jays keep striking out with players, but
me too. They gave Yankees so many issues last year. I'm glad to see that they're not getting what they thought they were going to get. But that's a Yankee fan. So
who's the big pitcher that they got?
That the
Blue Jays
got?
I don't know why I can't think of it, but I'm like, all right, they already have Ryu. Now they have this guy. I can't remember who it was.
They picked up somebody else. Who did they pick up?
You would think that we prepare for these shows, but we're
kind of just like winging it right now.
It's our fault. We're rusty. It's the first episode back.
Yeah, got to shake off the rust. They got David Phelps. Not that he was the big free agent signing. Francisco Liriano.
He's not even going to make the team.
No, probably not. Marcus Semien. That's the big name.
Semien, they grabbed him for a shortstop.
Semien and Springer were the big bats. Even Motts is who they got from the Mets. Mats.
I could have sworn they got another good pitcher.
I'm looking for it. George Springer. This is embarrassing.
I'm hoping I could be wrong, and I hope I am. Because the Yankees really hit well against Ryu. So I'm never worried about him. Pearson in the rotation usually is the next big thing, but who knows how good he'll be.
Yeah, he throws hard, but who knows if he has the command. They picked up Tyler Chatwood. They got Kirby Yates for the bullpen.
And even Springer. Like, Springer's a really good player. He's one of the few Astros I didn't mind, but he's not a guy that I'm like changes your game plan. Like, he's not a guy that I'm going to be scared about now that I'm a Yankee fan. So,
no,
that doesn't really shift it out.
What made him dangerous was what was around him. I mean, when the Astros were – he is. And when the Astros were – when everyone thought they weren't cheating or didn't know they were cheating, you had Altuve, Bregman, Correa, and Springer, and Brantley. That's a solid top 5 in your lineup. It's hard to pitch around one of them and then pitch to the next guy. So
right.
I think he benefited from having good support around him. I don't know if that's going to be as much the case here in Toronto. Maybe, because you got Bo Bichette and Vladdy Jr.
I'm excited to see what he does this year.
Yeah, and I guess Vladdy lost like 30 pounds. And
I heard that.
He's back because he was too fat to play 30. It's basically like the Panda Man there.
I remember him.
Greg, the pitcher I was thinking about was Steven Matz. They traded the
Matz from the Mets.
Yeah,
it was hot and cold. So the Mets were in on a lot of.
He was very inconsistent last year.
The Mets were in on Realmuto. They were in on Springer, who they ended up getting, and they were trying to lure LeMahieu away from the Yankees. So they were in on a few guys that would have made that team really scary. But I think now, they're definitely better than last year. But I think the players that they missed out on is more important than anything. I don't think they're going to take that next step now.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, because if the Yankees do what they did last year as far as performance and are injured half the year, which a lot of people are worried is going to happen, because they signed Corey Kluber, they traded for Jameson Taillon, and 2 guys who have been injury prone over the last 2 years, who, if they're healthy, are fantastic additions. But if they're not, now you're piecing together a rotation, which is why a lot of people wanted the Yankees to make some trades for Kyle Hendricks or Yu Darvish or some of these other big names that were available via the trade market. And they just didn't, because they're trying to get under the tax threshold. They're trying to reset that so they can probably make some moves next year. I'm not sure who's a free agent next year, but
there's a lot of shortstop. A lot of shortstop.
Trevor Story's a free agent.
Corey Seager from the Dodgers is a free agent.
Yep, unless they. Yeah.
The Lindor didn't get an extension, right? Or did he?
Not yet. I don't think.
You got to feel like they're going to be able to re-sign him.
Mm-hmm. If he likes playing there, I'm sure he'll extend, but he probably won't extend until after the season.
Right. As far as pitchers, though, I don't know what pitchers are out there. I don't really think the Yankees are going to be in the market for many things other than maybe relief pitchers and pitcher. It's always pitching with the Yankees, but they should be pretty set everywhere else.
They should be. You would hope, because I think they still have a lot of people under team control, and there's going to be Gary Sanchez is going to be a big question mark. If he can bounce back, if not, then the Yankees are going to have a big hole behind the plate, because you can't rely on Kyle Higashioka, I don't think.
So the other team I think the other team that made some splashes in the American League were the White Sox, right? I think I know they're going to have a good team.
Yes.
But I think as far as transactions-wise, they made a bunch this offseason.
They made some moves very, like the Padres. They made some moves very early on in the offseason. And I think they are the favorites, in my mind, to win the NL or AL Central. Twins are still a good team, but after the moves the White Sox made and the way they looked last year, I think if the White Sox had a full season, they win that division.
Yeah, and their rotation's even better this year now.
That's the big downside to the shortened season, is you only get a 60-game sample size. Some of these teams may take a while to get going. If you play a full 162-game season, I think the division, whoever won the division last year, I think very different for some of these divisions. I mean, I think the Rays were playing so well for 60 games. I don't know if they could get it up for the whole season. I don't think they end up in the division by the end of the year. They were just winning and winning and winning and winning, which is great. But can you keep for a whole season? I don't know. And then the Yankees, you knew they were going to get at some point. So I don't know. But that's the downside to the. But then that's it's a sprint. You got to see who can get through and get into the playoffs, and then that's where you test your mettle. But
yeah, because the way the Rays pitch is a lot of it's a lot of bullpen, obviously, and I don't know if they follow that same game plan if it's 162 games because those arms are going to get really burnt out in the bullpen. So you're right. Mm-hmm. Full season, I feel like the Yankees, after they got healthy, would have done their typical thing where they start off good, they go through a lull with injuries, and they come back and finish strong. So it could have been different.
Mm-hmm.
So you were talking about the available pitchers that are out there right now. The best one they're saying right now is DeMarja.
No, I meant for next year.
Oh, for next year. I thought you were talking about this year. This year, like Porcello still available this year. David Robinson.
You guys looking at that? Yeah, David Robertson just threw for teams the other day.
Yeah,
because he's coming off commentary. Porcello.
Samardzija, I'm a little surprised by. He's usually always on a team.
He's not been very good for a while now. He's been pretty bad.
He's sucked for a little bit. Yeah.
I just remember the last deal he got with San Francisco was a pretty decent deal. That's why I thought he was on the upside, but must be trending downward.
So White Sox signed. White Sox signed Dallas Keuchel, Gio Gonzalez. I don't know if he has anything left. Edwin Encarnacion. Nomar Mazara got traded to Chicago from Texas.
Hendricks.
So are you looking at last year's? I think that's last year's signings, Brad.
Yes, I did.
White Sox.
No, that was this year. That was all December 2000. Yeah, that was December 2019. So, a couple years back.
You're
either way, they got better. Okay, it's borderline embarrassing, but hey, White Sox. I know that
they got Liam Hendricks, who is probably arguably the best closer on the market. They got Lance Lynn, who's one of the top starting pitchers on the market. They got Adam Eaton. They picked up Adam Eaton. Who else
Adam Eaton's back.
Yeah, he played with the White Sox a few years ago, and then went to DC, and now he's back. And then they have all those young players. They got Tim Anderson, Yoel Moncada, Luis Robert,
Robert,
Eloy Jimenez, Jose Abreu, who won the MVP. I mean, they're loaded. And then they got pitching. They got Giolito. They got Lance Lynn now. Michael Kopech, I think, should be healthy this year. Dallas Keuchel.
Yep.
So they're going to be a tough team. And like I said, the Twins are good. But after that, who else you got? The Cleveland Indians, they are not the same anymore. They got rid of Clevenger. They got rid of they just have Shane Bieber and Jose Ramirez. That's it. Everyone else is – I mean, that's not going to put you over the top.
Yeah, I mean,
and then Cleveland the Royals.
Cleveland always seems to have those young pitchers that keep coming up and are just awesome, but it's only going to get you so far. If Jose Ramirez goes into a slump, that's it. You don't have anybody else.
which he is prone to do. He's known for having incredible hot streaks, and he's known for being in incredible slumps. So you don't know what you're going to get. I'm sure he'll turn it on when he needs to, but you can't just rely on that. You have Carlos Santana, who's been around for what seems like forever. But then who else do you have, offensively speaking, if you're the Indians?
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you.
I couldn't tell you either. Josh Naylor? No. But then you got the Tigers and the Royals, and they're not going to do much.
Yeah.
I don't know. The central both central divisions are very weak. in my mind.
Well, I will say the Royals have a good group, but
They're just
and they
really
just added
young.
Benintendi. I don't know how Benintendi's going to be, but I think they're like the Marlins. I think they're going to be better than people think, but they're still not going to beat out Twins or the White Sox.
I think what they have going for them, Brad, is that division's so weak that you play 19 games against your division, and you're a mediocre team. You're going to win probably more than you lose. And when you have 19 games against the Tigers, that's going to work in your favor. And so I think they'll probably finish around third in that division. It's going to be between them and Cleveland for third place, I think.
Yep.
But then you got divisions like the AL East and the AL West, and the West is always seems to be pretty solid between the Astros, A's, and the Angels are going to make some noise if they stay healthy.
By the way,
but the Rangers aren't going to do much.
Sorry, guys. You mentioned Carlos Santana. I'm like, I don't think he plays for the Angels anymore. I had to look up. He's on the Royals now.
Oh, that's what it was.
Okay. I'm like, I don't think he's there anymore. So that's even
right.
one less player we know.
Very early in the offseason.
Yeah,
I remember that.
So that's one less player we know about the Indians.
Yeah, and then I saw that. I was like, why would he sign there? This is like
Machado.
He's nowhere near the talent of Machado.
Royals isn't that bad. They just don't have any pitching. So.
No, they don't. They don't.
It's like all the pitching in the major leagues right now are just hoarded by Dodgers, Padres, and White Sox, I guess.
But then you look at the AL East, and we could talk about this briefly. Then I'd like to kind of get into some of the rules that are going to be in place this year and what we can expect from this season. But the AL East, obviously the Yankees are going to be the favorite. They always seem to be. That's no doubt about that. A's have lost a couple of players this year. They might not be the same team they were last year. And again, if they just caught lightning in a bottle last year, and they're going to be forced to play a full season. You're going to get 162 games out of the Rays. I don't know if they have what it takes to win the division, especially when you got the Blue Jays, which are a much better team, and the Yankees, who are already the favorites. And then the Orioles are, they're probably the worst team in the division, but they're getting better. They're rebuilding. They're young, and they always gave the Yankees problems. And the Red Sox are going to get Chris Sale back this year, and they're not going to be as bad as most people think. But I think the bottom two teams are going to be the Orioles and the Red Sox, not necessarily in that order.
Without a doubt, it will be two worst teams. The Rays are interesting because I think the Rays, we always just give the benefit of the doubt because they always seem to make whatever the roster they have, they just make it work. But I don't know who's the rotation right now. Everyone talks about the Yankee rotation being terrible. No one talks about how bad Houston's are or Tampa Bay's is.
Well, let's see. The Rays, they traded away Snell, but they have and they lost Charlie Morton. He went to the Braves. But they still have Tyler Glass now, and they just signed two starting pitchers. They signed Colin McHugh and Rich Hill.
Which are what? Average at best?
Rich Hill will give you 5. Colin McHugh, he's hit or miss. But I remember Colin McHugh always giving the Yankees problems. So the Rays always seem to find these guys that always give the Yankees problems.
Yeah.
And that's their big competition for the division. So
it's funny looking at
so we kind of went through all the divisions, we went through all the teams and the big pickups and whatnot. But a lot of the big conversation leading into this season was what are the rules going to be? Because we're still going through COVID. Are we going to start on time? Will there be fans? Whatever. Some cities are allowing it. Some cities are not. But the big thought was because next year's the new collective bargaining agreement, they're going to go into negotiations for that, which some people think that there's going to be a work stoppage. I wouldn't be surprised if there was, but is getting expanded playoffs, which seems to be something that Major League Baseball really wants, not necessarily the players and the fans. The universal DH, and then the extra inning rules that they talked about that they had last year, which was starting with a runner on second. And was there something else? I think that was it.
No, I mean they're doing the 3-batter rule. They're sticking with.
Yep. Which you know what? After a while, I didn't even notice it last year.
No, I think people still hate it. I mean, Joe Girardi's been on record saying it's the worst rule in all of sports. But
No, I can think of worse things. But a lot of the big conversation leading up to maybe a week or so ago, when they were finally finalizing these rules, was will they do the universal DH? And they ultimately ended up not doing the universal DH, which I guess the agreement is MLB will give you the universal DH if the players and teams and owners agree to expand to playoffs. That's what I read.
If they just had like a standalone rule proposal for a universal DH, both sides want it, so it would pass in seconds. But it's just like politics, where they're going to take that and they're going to use it as leverage. So baseball said, "We'll give you guys universal DH, but that means we're also going to start the season a month late, and it's going to be 154 games, and we're going to have expanded playoffs." And players said, "No, we don't want those other two things. We only want the DH." So that got shot down right away, and the players' union didn't even send a proposal back. So here we are. We're going to start on time, but we're not going to have a universal DH. And I'm not really sure what's going on with the playoffs. Do you know what's going on with the playoffs?
No expanded playoffs. It's going to be just regular.
So just one wild card?
Two wild card teams? Two wild card. Yep.
So we're just going to go back to 2019 baseball now. So
pretty much. I'm a little – and I don't care about that. I could have gone either way with expanded playoffs. I could see why it benefits the league. I don't need to have extra teams in the playoffs, but I'm one of the fortunate fans where my team is always in the playoff hunt, so it doesn't really matter to me. But I can see for small market teams, it benefits them, getting them exposure and getting additional money, but it also makes Major League Baseball a ton more money.
Makes a lot of money.
But the thing that bothers me is that 7-inning doubleheaders.
Yes,
that's what they agree. And I don't like those. I don't like 7-inning doubleheaders.
Me neither. But that one was like another one that was just universally agreed on. Like, okay, yeah, we're going to do that again this year.
I don't like the extra inning rules, and I don't like the 7-inning doubleheaders. 7 innings is not a full baseball game. It's just like the shortened season. You're taking away late comebacks. You're shortening the game. It's putting more pressure on the hitters, and pitchers, which is fine, but it's not a full baseball game. I get rain shortened games.
No, I don't see
that's fine, but I don't really care for it. And starting the extra innings with a runner on second, that's a softball thing for me. And I played rec league softball, and we do extra innings where you start with a runner on second. So I don't really care for that. It speeds the game up, and why would you want to speed up a game of baseball? If you're a big fan of the game, you're already watching. You don't care. You don't care that there's more baseball. And I know that they're trying to attract. Younger fans and more fans, but I feel like there's got to be a better way to do it than this.
Right, but they need to understand it's not time of the game that's the problem. It's the amount of time of action that they need to figure out, because there's so much of the game that there's nothing happening. And if they're going to change that, then they have to look at the shift. They have to get rid of the shift, and they have to get rid of this whole analytics thing that's telling players to go for a home run or nothing. They're telling you can't keep teaching players that strikeouts aren't good for the game, because it's not. I think that's a couple of things that what's his face from the Cubs that is now working with baseball. What's his name? He used to be the GM.
Epstein.
Yeah, that's one of the things that he said. Now that's part of his job now with baseball is to try to figure out how to make the game better. And he's like, I quite honestly have to undo some things that I helped create, like the shift. And that's the problem. It's not the time of the games.
And you're right.
So the 7-inning games.
It's the stuff they do during
the 7-inning games and the player on second start extra inning. It makes no sense.
It doesn't. And I feel like it creates a completely different game than the one that we've been watching our entire lives. Now, if you want to attract fans, I think Major League Baseball needs to take a page out of the playbook, broadcast games on kid networks.
Yeah, that was cool.
I watched a little bit of that playoff game. You watched it. I know you watched, Brad. And if you make watching the game fun instead of having, because can't relate commentators talking about they're not going to watch that. And if they're waiting for someone to players do is for the fences, and they're going to be sitting around. It's not exciting for kids. So you got to make the game interactive. You got to make it. And the other big thing is you got to let the players express themselves. You got to let them celebrate when they hit a home run, celebrate when they strike out. I am guilty of not liking that stuff when it first came out, when players celebrated with bat flips and exaggerated fist pumps and whatever. I didn't really care for that. But after it being around, it makes the game a little more interesting. You want kids to pretend they're big ball players. They're going to mimic and do what they see the players do. So if you see someone doing this bat flip, they're gonna do it. They're gonna copy after their idols and people who when I was a kid, I used to play batting stances. That's what I did. So, you want the game to grow, you got to make it more relatable and more interesting for younger audiences and for people who don't watch the game. My wife does not like baseball at all. I mean, she'll watch it if I want to watch it, but she doesn't go out of her way to watch it. But if you want to get someone like that to watch the game, you got to make it interesting in a way that they can watch the game and be, oh, I didn't know that, or this is a learning experience for me. It's an opportunity that they've missed.
I've never understood that code where you can't celebrate when you do something good, especially like a home run or something like that. Like, I don't understand that. I mean, I know that it's part of the sport, and if you do something like that, you're going to get a payback for it, or your teammate is. But to me, I just don't understand that. Like the one I remember, I'll always remember the Bautista one where he basically threw the bat almost into the stands, and they threw at him. That team threw at him all year. And it was kind of like,
and then rubbing it out, do a punch in the face.
You end up getting, but you're right. You end up getting punched in the face. Yeah,
he did. I mean, he won a playoff game, and it was a big thing for Toronto because Toronto hadn't been in the playoffs for forever. So I hate Bautista, but I actually didn't mind that what he did because that's just part of the moment. But yeah, then they had the whole thing where someone slid in the second really hard on him, so they got big fight. Yeah, I mean, you gotta let the kids play. That's what they say, but you got to actually do it. You can't say it and then still punish guys for doing that stuff. Like Tatis last year. Everyone gave him so much crap for hitting that grand slam and they were up by however many. It's like you can't tell the kids to play. Yeah, it was a 3-0 pitch and he hit the grand slam, and you can't tell the kids to have fun and play and then give them all kinds of crap for it. And he apologized at the game. He didn't even know he did anything wrong. That was
and he should have had to apologize.
Right,
There's no reason for him because it's not his fault that the pitcher threw a ball right down the middle for him to swing at.
Exactly.
He's a batter. He has a bat. He's in the batter's box. He has every right to swing at that. The one thing that is what makes people not want to watch baseball, I think, are these stupid unwritten rules. Everything's an unwritten rule. You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't look at the pitcher the wrong way because then he's entitled to throw at you because the pitchers have to police the game. It's ridiculous. Yeah. It's getting way out of hand. If you want people to watch, you want people to be interested in the game, let them express themselves. Let them celebrate. Let them do end zone dances after they hit a home run if they want to. Football players do it. Why can't baseball players do it? Hockey, they all celebrate. They run down the line and slap hands and hug and do all that stuff. Why can't players celebrate like that?
Slap hands.
Every sport has their unique way of celebrating, right? Why can't baseball have?
You can't celebrate
baseball.
The only time you celebrate baseball is after you strike
without pissing someone off. Huh?
So let's move on past that because that's
okay. All right. Well, we talked enough about Major League Baseball.
Yeah,
I think this is a good opportunity to change gears to talk more about the Yankees. This is Yankee Chatter after all. When we put this up on iTunes and everything, this will be split into a separate episode. But for the sake of the live stream, we'll just keep this going. So we already talked about Major League Baseball. The Yankees, they are the heavy favorites in the AL East and one of the favorites coming out of the American League to make it to the World Series to face the Dodgers probably, if not the Padres. There's a couple favorites over there. But one of the big deals this year was who the Yankees were going to sign or re-sign. And one of the biggest free agents of the offseason was DJ LeMahieu. And it seemed like they were dragging their feet trying to re-sign him. I mean, other teams were starting to look at him. There was stories coming out where the Yankees told him, or the Yankees weren't negotiating with him. So he made the point to say, well, I'm going to start looking at other locations, possibly the Mets, possibly the Blue Jays. And then finally they re-signed him. Finally. So that's probably the biggest move that the Yankees made this entire offseason was re-signing the second runner-up, the MVP of last year.
Yeah, I mean, everyone kind of knew he was going back to New York, but there was that time where we're all like, wait, is this really happening? Like, are they really going to not budge? And you're going to let someone like the Blue Jays steal him? Like, there was issue. There was times when there could have been issues with that, but, LeMahieu said all along, he knew where he wanted to be. It was the years that he wanted and the place that he wanted that was most important to him. He didn't want to go through free agency again. This would probably take him to close to the end of his career. So, yeah, bringing him back was huge. And that happened after the Lindor trade. So I wonder if the fact that Lindor was gone had anything to do with that. I wonder if there was an outside chance that Cashman was holding for Lindor. But I don't think the Yankees actually ever really made a trade offer. So I just think it was one of those things that had to get done. It got done. We can all have a sigh of relief and move on to the next needs, which everyone knew was pitching, and go to there now.
Yeah, so pitching has always been a big Achilles heel of the Yankees. Now, they got their guy last year. They signed Garrett Cole to a huge 9-year deal, which I would say his first season, even though it was shortened by the pandemic, was quite successful. Yeah, not as dominant as we hoped, but he did what he had to do, and he was a reliable ace. But the question is now, who falls in behind him? So most of the Yankees' rotation from last year became free agent this year. Paxton's a free agent, was a free agent. He just signed with the Mariners.
So he just went to Seattle, yeah.
Yep, back to Seattle. Tanaka became a free agent, which is a little disappointing that they didn't make a run for him, but he went back to Japan because for him it was either Yankees or nothing. He talked to some other teams, but ultimately he decided to go back to Japan, which I guess their spring training's already started. It's weird seeing him in a different uniform. I would have liked to have seen him pitch a few more years in the States, but it is what it is. And Jay Happ, the Yankees, I forgot how they got out of his contract. He didn't meet certain stipulations in his contract last year.
They had a team option if he didn't pitch a certain amount of innings. And if you remember, beginning of last year, because of what his schedule was, there was a way. I think Garrett Cole was pitched like 4 or 5 games before Happ even pitched one, and they justified that because that's the way the schedule was set up. But Happ said, "Well, I know what they're trying to manipulate my innings," and it was a back and forth thing. Mm-hmm. So that's how they got out of having to bring him back.
Where'd he end up going to? Minnesota, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he's a Twin this year, and I think, Brad, that's the vesting option. So he had to meet certain contract requirements through the season. What you're saying, I think he had to make a certain number of starts or pitch a certain number of innings, and he did not meet those. So the Yankees were able to decline the option, and that's how he became a free agent. Am I missing someone? Who else? Is that everyone in the
for free agents? Yeah, and then he had Herman that became a free agent. Then he had Herman that was suspended for the year, and then he had Severino that was out for the year injured. So,
and then out of the bullpen, they triggered Chris Britton's or Zach Britton. I always say Chris Britton. Zach Britton. So he's back for another 2 years. They lost Tommy Kahnle.
That's sad.
New York native. He went to the Dodgers. He won't be back till midseason anyways because he had Tommy John last year. But then you have mostly everyone else coming back. Jordan Montgomery's coming back. Davey Garcia's we're going to have a chance to see what he can do. He looked good last year. coming in late in the season out of the rotation. Clark Schmidt might get a shot. It'll be interesting to see what he does. You said Domingo Herman.
You got Michael King that's going to try to do again.
So
Michael King is going to make the team. Then they're really hiring this guy Nick Nelson to be a bullpen guy. He didn't really fare too well. It was I think he had 2 or 3 games with the Yankees last year. He did not do very well, but
I remember he had like his first outing. He did okay, and then like he got beat up his next few, and then got sent back to the site.
But I think they flew him as like the next Chad Green back there. So
which is great because Chad Green's big part of that bullpen, big anchor in that bullpen.
Yeah,
it's a big loss to lose Tommy Kahnle. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why they didn't go as far as they did. He hurt their chances in the playoffs. And then they traded away Adam Ottavino. Yeah. Adam Ottavino went to the Red Sox for cash or a player to be in nil. Him being traded was just a salary dump. He's supposed to make $9 million this year. And the Yankees are trying desperately to get under the tax threshold. So that's why they haven't made any big splashes lately.
I guess I'm sorry. I guess it's almost a done deal between them and Wilson.
Justin Wilson?
Justin Wilson. And they said, so Wilson plus O'Day, because they signed O'Day, is actually still going to be cheaper than Ottavino by himself. So I don't know what
O'Day's.
I want to hear.
O'Day's a nice pickup. I will be honest. O'Day is a really nice pickup. He's going to be a really under the radar signing. He was really good with the Braves last year, and he's got that sidearm motion. He's essentially a cheaper, a little bit older Adam Ottavino, more effective.
Yeah, he was the Yankees' problems with the Orioles.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to know the Red Sox GM's justification of taking on Ottavino's contract. I'm almost wondering if he thinks that if Ottavino performs well, then they can flip him for prospects at the deadline, maybe.
It's possible. I mean, you don't get many prospects for a bullpen.
Yeah, why else would you take that? I don't get it.
I don't know either. I think their bullpen was already really thin, and they needed someone. They need someone to back end that bullpen in Boston. They didn't sign anyone, right?
Why not just sign any of these guys that are going to be cheaper than Ottavino?
I don't know. I think when Adam Ottavino is really good, he's one of the best he could be one of the best relievers in the game. That's why the Yankees signed him, because he had a really good year, especially out of Colorado. I think they're taking a huge gamble on taking on his salary and because he could continue to just get worse. He had a lot of problem with control last year. It was a little disappointing because they spent so much money to sign him for a 3-year contract. So
I agree. But like I said, they picked up O'Day and hopefully they grab Wilson here, and it pretty much does it for the Yankees. We'll get to Jay Bruce too, but
so that wraps up the bullpen. They have big expectations for some high risk, high reward players in Corey Kluber. Corey Kluber apparently looked really good in his showcase, and he's been training and working with Eric Cressey, who is the Yankees' top medical guy, top training guy. So he had a really good look at him while he was gearing up for the showcase. So they're taking a big chance on him. Now, Kluber got hit by a line drive last year. That's why he missed most of the season, or all the season. Yeah. And then he had shoulder problems, I think.
Yeah, it wasn't Tommy John. It wasn't elbow. It was like a shoulder.
It wasn't anything like that. Yeah. So there's a good chance that we're not going to see Kluber with the Cy Young caliber probably, but we will probably see what I think more of what Jay Happ was when he first came over from Toronto after they acquired him. I think that's what they're looking at him to be. And if he could be that and slot in behind Garrett Cole, then I think you're going to have a really solid 1-2 punch between Kluber and Cole. And then if you get Severino back later in the year, that's a big thing. If he can be Severino and not let the Tommy John surgery affect his effectiveness. So
I think them not bringing back Tanaka is going to kick them in the ass.
A lot of people are saying that. And I was just going to say, I think Kluber needs to be better than what J Happ ever was to really be a number 2 behind Cole.
I agree. I just think we shouldn't put our expectations to that level. I think if we get, because J Happ was pretty good when he first came over from the trade. We were all surprised how good he was. So if you go in expecting Kluber to be Corey Kluber of the past, I think you're going to be upset. But if he comes in and he puts together a nice season like Happ did when he first came over, I think that would leave me satisfied because he was very effective, and it's going to make me feel a lot better not going into a Kluber start being like, oh shoot, what are we going to get out of him? Because that's what Happ turned into. His last year and the year before, he wasn't the same pitcher, and you didn't know what you were going to get out of him. It all depended, and same with Paxton. Paxton, he couldn't get out of the first inning, and if he did, then he ended up having a good start. If he didn't, then it totally blew up his day. And you don't want that to happen to people. And you don't want that to happen to your number 2 guy. Which brings me to the other guy that they traded for from Pittsburgh, Jameson Taillon.
And Taillon, I think they're hoping to have I think they're hoping Taillon has the same kind of season that Eovaldi had with the Yankees when he first came over. Like everyone kind of gave up on him because of his injuries. And he ended up pitching really good for the Yankees. So I'm hoping Taillon has the same kind of bounce back.
I hope so too, because I think what is working for him is that he's very good friends with Garrett Cole. I mean, they played together in Pittsburgh. They were roommates in Pittsburgh. I think having someone like that for Garrett Cole will help him in the long run, and I think it'll help Taillon in the long run because you're going to have 2 guys that are going to be perfecting and working on their craft, and they're going to be probably going to be really close. So if he can stay healthy, I like the Eovaldi analogy. I also think that they might look at him to take Tanaka's place. Like
he's going to have
offset. He's going to have to, but that's I think what they're hoping they get out of him. So it'll be exciting. I think if they can stay healthy, that you're going to have a nice, solid rotation for the Yankees, and it's a very deep one too.
That's the thing. It's frightening because it can either be, so people like the naysayers, the critics are going to say, well, the Yankees got all these pitchers between Kluber and Taillon and Herman that threw a combined 1 inning last year. Now 1 inning was Corey Kluber's.
Yeah.
But then there's the flip side of it that's like, well, wait a second, did all these guys stay healthy? Like you said, Greg, that's a really deep rotation, and that's a really scary postseason rotation, especially for Herman pitches. Like, then you get Severino halfway through the year, and then everyone always forgets about my boy Jordan Montgomery.
I was going to say you got Montgomery, and then you got Davy Garcia and Clark Schmidt and Jonathan Loaizaga as additional depth. Now I think Loaizaga should be in the bullpen. I think he should be
a bullpen guy. Yeah, and I think
he could be like Phil Hughes in 2009. He reminds me a lot of him.
I was just going to say.
He reminds me of a young Mariano Rivera. I'm not saying he's going to be as effective as Mariano Rivera. He just looks like Mariano Rivera. But I think he could ultimately be a 1-2 inning guy that throws straight heat like Phil Hughes did in 2009. And Phil Hughes was a big part of why the Yankees won that World Series.
Yeah, huge part.
The way I was thinking about it the other day was Yankee fans, they always want trades and free agent signings to get better, right? But they always want to trade for guys on other teams like Taillon that are young, have years of control, and have potential. Well, instead of looking at Pittsburgh's farm system or any other team's farm system, look at your own. If you had a Davy Garcia, which I haven't even mentioned yet, if we had a Davy Garcia, a Jordan Montgomery, a Clark Schmidt, Herman, if any of those guys were on another team, you probably would want the Yankees to trade for them if they were made available. Well, we had them all.
They would be like Luis Castillo, right? All the Yankee fans want Luis Castillo. If these guys were given innings and an opportunity on a small market team, they'd probably be at the top or middle or upper middle of the rotation.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, you gotta have faith that the Yankees believe in these young pitchers for a reason. Now let them pitch, let them play. I mean, I think that's what you gotta do. Have a little faith in these kids.
Mm-hmm. This reminds me a lot of back when Phil Hughes and Jabba Chamberlain and Ian Kennedy were all coming up at the same time. Remember that?
Well,
And everyone's
I
like,
hope
this is the second coming.
I hope they're a little bit better than that group turned out to
Yeah,
I hope they're better than that group. Well, they had a lot of high expectations because the Yankees hadn't developed their own pitching since Pettit came up.
be. Well, Kinsler won a Cy Young
Right.
with Arizona, didn't he?
Who did?
Didn't Ian Kinsler? Didn't he win a Cy Young with Arizona or no? He was
Did he
really
win
good
Cy
with
Young?
Arizona.
He's a closer now for Kansas City. So
Not Kinsler. Who am I thinking? The other guy, because wow, I can't think of his name. Ian Kennedy, right?
Ian Kennedy.
Is that the right
Looking him
name?
I don't think Kennedy
Yeah.
ever won a Cy Young.
So out of that group,
He
one
was
of them
really
got
good. They traded him to. Did he pitch for Arizona? Oh, I'm bringing him up right now.
Phil Hughes.
He's on
Phil
the
Hughes
Royals
went to Minnesota, right?
someone that was
No,
part of that group.
They traded him to Arizona. He
Yeah.
had one good year there where he finished fourth in the Cy Young voting.
All right.
He went 21-4 with a 2.88 ERA
Yeah.
and
And it
222
was crazy
innings
good.
pitched. Yeah, and
And
then
everyone's like,
he
oh
was
my
okay
God.
the next year. And then they traded him to San Diego, and then San Diego sent him to Kansas City.
Right, because Jabba with that group, Hughes went to Minnesota, Jabba went to Detroit, and Kennedy went to Arizona.
Well, Jabba and Hughes were on the Yankees for a few years first. Like
Yeah.
out of the three,
They were both on the Yankees in
traded
2009. I think Jabba left in 2000. His last year on the Yankees was 2013. Jabba, so he was on the Yankees for 7
4
years.
Yeah.
And then
Kennedy
he pitched.
before he even got a chance
He
with the
pitched
Yankees.
for Detroit and
Yeah, then he
Kansas
got
City, and then he got.
Then he got hurt jumping on his kid's trampoline, and that was the end of his career.
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
don't you remember him on Detroit? He railed Jeter by accident.
Yeah, he did.
You remember that? He was so sorry
I
about it.
remember
He was
him.
yeah.
Bernard Jeter.
He looked
It
like
was
a
Aaron Jeter's last year, right?
he looked like a
Yeah, it was
wonder.
last season.
He looked like he hadn't gotten a haircut or a shave in years.
Yeah, he was never really very good after the Yankees. The Yankees, that's one other issue, but they screw that guy's career up big time, if you ask me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
moving
Flipping
him
on
back and
between.
forth between starting and in the bullpen totally messed him up.
Then remember the shirts everyone had the Jabba rules because they had all these rules. He can only
Yeah.
pitch certain innings. He couldn't pitch back-to-back games. It was so
Mhm.
stupid.
Yep. Yeah. But
So, anyways,
hopefully these young pitchers are not Hughes. Now Hughes ended up having a solid career. I wouldn't say he was anything great, but he was decent.
it's a pretty good
And-
average career, yeah.
Yeah, out of the three, I think Ian Kennedy's still pitching, but
Yeah.
he had to move to the bullpen permanently. He's not a starter anymore. Hughes went back to starting after 2009 and then pitched for a few years in Minnesota, and then I think he went to San Diego and then retired this year.
He should have stayed in the bullpen. He was really
Yeah,
good.
he should
He
have.
was so good in the bullpen.
So, pitching-wise, I think you just got to hold your breath and hope that these guys can pitch to their potential. They pitch to their potential. The Yankees have one of the best rotations in the American League.
Yeah.
So with that said, let's talk a little bit about the batting lineup, and then we'll probably have to call it a day.
Well,
But,
Big Tuna's calling it. I got to call
So
it a
not
day right
how much
now.
has changed. Go ahead, Tino.
I was going to say, I got to
What's
hop
that?
off right now. You guys can finish up the
Okay.
show.
It's been fun.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
I was going to say,
thanks for joining this. Tino.
3:30 was my cutoff. I got to head out.
Feeding
Okay.
time.
That's right.
Someone's got to feed the guy now.
I got to feed the sloths. You guys have a good rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of your Valentine's Day.
You as well, buddy.
Pretty soon.
Later.
Talk to you soon. All right. Well, we won't take too much time.
Well, now we got the dead weight off the show.
No, but we can talk a little bit about the batting order. Not much has changed. The big thing right now is left field. What are they going to do? Are they going to let Frazier actually start and be the regular left fielder, or are they going to re-sign Brett Gardner. A lot of people think that they are going to sign Brett Gardner. I would be okay if they didn't. I mean, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. A lot of people are going to be offended if they don't because he's been a Yankee his entire career. But I don't know how you feel about that, Brad.
I think I don't think they need to sign him. I think they wait. I don't see Gardner playing anywhere else. So I think if there's an injury, they might sign him back. But other than that, I don't think they need to. They already have Tauchman as a backup left fielder. So there's your lefty bat. You got Stanton that can play left if needed. And then, I don't know if you remember, Greg, but one of the first free agents, either free agents or trades that the Yankees did this year was for a utility outfielder. I want to say his last name was Belt, maybe? Do you remember that transaction?
I don't.
Look, it was really early. I want to say it was December, maybe November. But they traded for a guy that is, from what I understand, a pretty good outfielder and a guy that can kind of be like a Cameron Maben, I guess you could say, just kind of fill in when the Yankees need him to. So if he makes the team, I think he has to make the team first.
Okay.
Let me know when you find that.
Because I don't remember this.
I can't remember I want to say it was start with a B. Maybe Belt was his last name. Well, either way, I'm just while you're looking at it, I'm just gonna say I don't
keep talking.
I don't think the Yankees need to sign Gardner. I think they need to give Frazier the confidence that this is his spot now. No more trying to prove yourself. No more trade talks. Just this is your left field now. Go out and play. He was in the running for a Cy Young last year, so he worked on his fielding. The guy has always hit well and he's got consistent at bats. So this is it. This is his time to shine. I feel bad for Gardy. Between him and Tanaka leaving, that's a huge part of the organization that's leaving in 1 year, a big core of them. But they have enough guys behind them. And what are you going to do with Tauchman? There's enough of this guy just sitting on the bench playing once a week. You have him there for a reason. And bring Gardner back to be just an older version of him, it just seems kind of unneeded, unnecessary.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So that's how I feel about the left field situation.
I can't find it.
Okay.
We'll look it up and we'll tweet it after the show, unless I can find it in the next few minutes. But so that, and they just signed Jay Bruce.
Yeah. Is he still play outfield or?
He can play outfield, probably not more than a left fielder at this point. And I think he's got a few games at first base. So you get a little bit I'd rather see him in the lineup than Mike Ford. No offense to Mike Ford.
Right.
But they also signed Asher Wachakowski. He's a pitcher.
I don't know that one.
He used to pitch for the Orioles.
Okay.
Let's see.
Maybe it's Greg Allen. Maybe it's Greg Allen I'm thinking of.
Oh, Greg Allen. Yeah, Greg
Allen. I don't know why I thought his name
Allen.
started with B, but Greg Allen.
Yeah, they picked him up from
so I think
Cleveland.
that's their other utility outfielder that they're going to count on making the team this year.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why else would you trade for him?
I don't think they need to. I would rather see them, if they were going to sign another player, I'd rather see them sign a reliever at this point. And if they were going to try and sign or make a trade, I'd like to see them trade for a starting pitcher. I think they're
Socrates
set.
Brito, Greg.
Socrates Brito.
Remember I said the guy's name starts with a B? Socrates Brito was who they traded for.
Yeah, I remember seeing that too. Obviously it wasn't a very memorable experience for me. I don't remember him.
Because I remember this is the very beginning of free agent signing, and everyone's like on Twitter, like, guys, the Yankees, they finally did something. We got Socrates Brito.
Yep. So I'm looking. They signed him in January on the 6th.
Okay.
They got Nestor Cortez is back. Andrew Velasquez, Socrates Brito. They also picked up Julius Chassin.
Yeah, he's a pitcher that's going to try to make the team.
Mm-hmm. And then they traded James Reeves for Greg Allen. They also got Tyler Lyons back, Steven Ridings. Some of these names I don't.
No, but anyways, I think Brito is going to be a guy that they're going to count on maybe filling Gardner's spot. So anyways, I don't see a need to bring Gardner back. Like I said, I feel bad. We need to.
They have plenty of depth in the outfield. And then, you got plenty of depth in the infield. You got Voit and LeMahieu can play first. LeMahieu can play literally anywhere in the infield.
Yeah.
I'm sure he can play shortstop if he needed to. You got Glaber at second and short, as well as LeMahieu. I mean, you got guys that can play multiple positions. I think that's the big thing that the Yankees are trying to do is pick up guys that can play more than one place. Obviously, first base, you're kind of stuck with a guy that can really only play first base in Voit. But outside of that,
there too.
Yeah, and then you got LeMahieu that can play there. But then you got Urshela who can play short and second in a pinch. Glaber can play second. Yeah, you got guys. And you got Tyler Wade who can play all three of those infield positions.
Spring training hero, Tyler Wade. That's all he is.
That is. I would hope he can take a step forward because I'm tired of people, saying he's not going to amount to anything. He probably won't, but it'd be nice to see him do something.
It'd be nice. I mean, a left-hand hitter, and he's got a lot of speed. It'd be great to see him take the next step again and be able to hit, but he just doesn't.
No, he doesn't. So, I mean, and then the only other position that I'm worried about is catcher. I mean, we have Gary Sanchez and we have Kyle Higashioka, but if Sanchez has another season, this will be 3 seasons in a row where he falls off the face of the earth and looks like he has never seen a curveball before in his life, then we're going to have some problems. Then the Yankees are going to have to find another catcher somewhere. You can't, like I said earlier when we were talking about MLB in general, is you can't have a Kyle Higashioka be your starting catcher. He's not that. I think he's better than Romine, but he's not, or he could be better than Romine, but he's not a starter. And then what do you do?
I think I actually blame the Yankees for a lot of Sanchez's career because I love Kyle Higashioka. Higashioka as a backup catcher is fine, but I think Sanchez would have really benefited from a veteran backup, like they had a little part of last year with Kratz. A guy that was out there that just signed last week was Jonathan Lucroy. I mean, I know the Yankees didn't have any room for him, but with Higashioka there, but I would have loved to see him as the backup. He's been in interviews this year saying he was planning on going to a team as a backup, helping out the starter, because he said it took him almost 10 years to figure out how to actually call an MLB game on his own. Just looking at other.
What also hurt the Yankees is when they brought in Aaron Boone, they lost Joe Girardi, former catcher, and Tony Pena, former catcher. Yeah. Tony Pena would have been the best thing for Gary Sanchez. He would have been. I mean, I think, and he was there still, right? Because Girardi was manager still when Sanchez first came up. So you had a very strong catcher coaching in the organization. That's why he was, I think, able to skyrocket through the minors and have the success he had his first 2 years in the big leagues. Yeah. But after that, when Boone came in, he lost his direction. He doesn't have, like you said, a veteran presence, someone who knows what they're doing, who's been catching for a long time in the big leagues to kind of look to. And I think that, like you said, really
that's the reason why I would have welcomed, like I said, Lucroy, or even like if they could have somehow gotten Molina this year, not to take over Sanchez's job, but just to have that guy that can help him through the whole rigors of a season behind the plate. And Sanchez never had that, and I think that would have really helped his career. Unfortunately, he's going to have to just do it himself again this year.
I hope so. I hope he can. I hope he can overcome all this because he had so much hype coming up through the system that you would want him to have that success. And it's unfortunate that because he's struggled, that he's getting the grief that he has been getting. And I would really hope that he can pull it together this year and silence the critics. Will that happen? I don't think so. I think we're going to have the same stuff. I think he'll probably have a few streaks in there where he might look like the same Gary Sanchez that we wanted all along. And then I think he's just gonna, I don't know, it's gonna be a tough year for him. If he can't right the ship, then I don't think he will be a Yankee next year.
Well, if that's the case, then Yankees are going to be in a lot of trouble. Where do you go from there? Higashoki's not going to be your starter.
They have some catching depth in the minors in Austin Wells and a couple of – they got –
I'm looking forward to seeing Austin Wells.
What's that?
I'm looking forward to Austin Wells. Get some actual minor league games this year. I want to see how well he's developing because from what I hear, he's pretty – from what I hear, he's very athletic. I think they said he actually plays – he can play outfield and first base as well as catcher.
Well, that's good. That's good. And they need someone that has that flexibility so that if he can hit, when he gets to a point in his career where he can't catch anymore, then at least you have someplace to put him. But, they've drafted –
the Yankees, because of Stanton, DH is pretty much always taken. So that's the unfortunate part.
Exactly. So you need some players that can give you flexibility. But the other guy I'm looking forward to finally playing a minor league game this year is Jason Dominguez.
Yeah.
Everybody, I think, is looking forward to him because he's drawn some big hype, big hype, a lot more hype than any other Yankees prospect I've seen in recent years. And I'm just hoping that he can hold up to it because they're comparing him to Mike Trout. They're comparing him to Mickey Mantle. They're comparing him to – there's another name in there I can't remember off the top of my head. Bo Jackson. So that's great. You can make all the comparisons you want, but he's still got to go out there and play the game. And if he can do that, then look out. I think the Yankees are going to have their center fielder of the future. I think he's going to be a big name that you're going to see them try and build around for years. And even if he doesn't live up to the hype, I would at least like to see him be the next Bernie Williams.
Right, that's all I ask for. Just give me another Bernie out there. That's all we need.
Exactly. So I don't really have anything else.
I want to see him play a game because all this is based on his exit velocity and how well his swing looks and all that. Put it off of just BP pitchers and machines. I want to see this guy go up there and hit a breaking ball. I want to see him play the field and come in and then have to go out and hit again in a professional game. So I'm excited to see
that, and probably most importantly, on top of all that, staying healthy,
which is never usually in the Yankees' favor. So
no, never seems to be. And I hope this year they're able to get past all that injury stuff. Now, injury is going to happen. Yeah, I mean, our injury is going to happen. Yeah, of course, someone's going to get hurt. But you hope that it's nothing that's going to derail an entire season or make you wonder how they're going to scrape together a lineup for a significant amount of time. So I hope that this is the year that this is when they stay healthy and Judge has a full year and Stanton has a full year because I'm getting tired of all the Stanton hate. I'm really getting sick of it. They traded for him, and at the time I think it was the best trade they could have made. He was coming off an MVP year. He can hit 50 home runs. He was staying healthy for the most part. It was a good move. No one could have seen what has happened to happen. You know what I mean? So I really hope that he finally stays healthy.
Looking back, the trade that I guess you can say you should have made now is probably Christian Yelich instead of Stanton. But that's looking back. At the time, like you said, he was the MVP of the National League. You got to make that trade if you can.
He was still in his 20s, right? So he's young. He's entering the prime of his career. Marlins can't pay for him. The Yankees can. Why? I would make that move 10 times out of 10.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you want the reigning NL MVP on your team?
Exactly. Be a fool not to.
So, So it's unfortunate he hasn't quite lived up to the hype since they acquired him. But I don't think the hate is really necessary. And I would like for him to take what he did in the playoffs and at the end of the season last year when he came back and carry that over to this year and be the Giancarlo Stanton that we have been wanting since we picked him up.
Well, that's the thing with him. Usually when he does play, he plays well.
Keeping him on the field is the key. Same with Judge, and I hope Judge isn't turning into that. Like he's been hurt every year since his rookie season. And yeah, the first injury was unfortunate because he got hit by a pitch up and in on the wrist. And then the second one I think was pretty unfortunate as well. Last year was he needs to be better conditioned. And that's why I think it's important that they're having him and Stanton do yoga this offseason, increase their flexibility, hopefully their durability, and hopefully we get a full season out of them, because I think Judge is one of the top 5 players in the game when healthy.
When healthy, definitely.
Mm-hmm. And then Glaber needs a bounce back season in the worst way. He had a tough season defensively at shortstop last year.
This is a guy who just 3 years ago was the number 1 prospect in all of baseball as a shortstop. So the talent's there. You just got to use it.
Yeah, and you're telling me that he all of a sudden forgot how to play shortstop? No, I think he just had a down year. He's only 23, right? 23, 24.
People don't want to don't want to talk about how his year last year was actually better than Didi's first year at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah,
in the field.
Everybody was crying when Didi left, when they didn't re-sign him, and when they missed out on him this year. Not that they necessarily missed out on him. It's just that Didi's now on the wrong side of 30, and Torres is the future. Torres is going to be the one that, if he can recreate the season from 2 years ago, hit 39 home runs and get better defensively, then he's the person you build a team around. He and Judge could be dangerous and then add Dominguez to that, could be dangerous for a long time.
He better be.
He better be. So before we wrap this up, we have someone, Chris D, who's been watching and leaving comments, and I appreciate you sticking this out, Chris. He's been asking a couple questions, and I'd just like to answer a couple of them before we sign off, Brad, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he asked us both, and I guess Tino when he was still on, who are your favorite Yankees of all time? You want to go first, Brad?
All time? Well, I mean, I wasn't alive to see the greats play, but when I go back to the greats, Gehrig and Ruth and Mantle and DiMaggio, that's my top 4 of all time. But as guys I like that I've seen play, my favorites, a lot of those 90s teams. I love Bernie Williams. Obviously, Greg will probably talk to you about Don Mattingly for the next hour. So he's up there.
Yeah, ball over my shoulder. Don Mattingly signed.
But all-time favorites, yeah. I mean, Jeter, Bernie Williams, Andy Pettit, Rivera, the usuals. I'm not a guy that has weird ones. I mean, I loved Melky Cabrera before we got traded away. But other than that, I don't really have any other strange ones that you wouldn't really expect from anyone else.
Mine was I think it depends on the time period. When I was a really young kid, my favorite player was Don Mattingly. I'm not left-handed, but I used to pretend to do his batting stance, and I never got to see him play. We used to go on bus trips every year. Well, my dad did. He would go to Yankee Stadium every year with one of the local churches. And then the first year that I was old enough to go, they ended up deciding to go to the Fenway. So we ended up going to a Red Sox game. So my first big league game ever was a Red Sox game. And unfortunately, that year was Donnie's last year. And then next year we went to Yankee Stadium, and I never got to see him play. So that was disappointing when he retired, but he was probably my all-time favorite. Then Jeter, being 8, 9, 10 years old when Jeter came into the big leagues, and I played shortstop, so I always would, copy him. Then Brad will probably tell you I used to be obsessed with Robinson Cano until he left Seattle.
Yeah. And
now it's probably Judge, but I think before I was born, I think I would have loved to seen Donnie in his prime. I would have loved to seen Joe DiMaggio and Mickey Mantle, and probably Yogi Berra. I think that would have been fun to see. I can't, like Brad said, I can't really narrow it down to one person. I think it really depends on the time period. We appreciate you watching, Chris. He just said this is his first time watching. I'm glad you're subscribing. Thank you. Spread the word. To answer your question about my shirt, I buy a lot of shirts from Baseballism. It's a clothing line that's only does baseball themed clothes, and it actually says 6, 4, 3 equals 2. It's like turning a double play. The numbers that they use to associate shortstop, second base, first base equals double play. So they have cool shirts like that. That's what that stands for. And I think he asked one more question, and then we can wrap up, Brad. Again, thanks again for sticking it out for those that have been watching. While I'm looking, we're on all the social medias. We're on Twitter at Yankee Chatter, Facebook at Yankee Chatter, Instagram at Yankee Chatter. We each have individual accounts. Our handles are on the screen. But for those of you listening, at Greg Andriano05, Brad is at BradderChatter1. Tino is Big Tuna BBS or something, BBS Big Tuna. It's on our profile if you want to follow him. All of our links are there. And then we're on audio. We're on all the podcast platforms, Spotify, Google Play, and iTunes. So if you missed out on this, if you're catching the end of this live stream, check it out. We'll be on YouTube and on iTunes and all those podcasting platforms. I don't see another question. So I think that'll wrap it up. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll probably have some
questions. You can send it to us before our next show too, which we don't have a date yet, but I'm sure it'll be soon, especially with spring training coming. So get at us on our Twitters and we can chat there.
Yeah, that's a good point, Brad. If anyone's interested in sending us questions so it gives us something else to talk about on the next episode, that'd be fantastic. Otherwise, thanks for tuning in. We're excited for spring training to start. Hopefully, this is the year for the Yankees that we've been waiting for since 2009. Fingers are crossed. So until next time, this is Yankee Chatter. I'm Greg. He's Brad. Tino is no longer with us. I mean, he's still alive, so don't worry. He had to drop off early. But thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.